90 seconds. One breath. Alpha state. That's the entire protocol Jose Silva spent 22 years trying to give you. And your nervous system already knows how to do it. Most people who attempt alpha meditation never actually get there. Research suggests 95% of practitioners plateau at a relaxed beta, 14 to 16 hertz, and mistake the calm for depth. They feel better. They do not enter alpha. There is a difference, and that difference determines everything about whether your mind can do what Silva promised it could. Jose Silva was a Texas-born electronics engineer and parapsychology researcher who spent more than 2 decades mapping the relationship between brainwave frequency and human performance. He trained over 6 million people across 110 countries. He was largely ignored by academic institutions. He was also correct. What Silva discovered was not a philosophy. It was a biological switch, one the body carries from birth, requires no equipment to activate, and can be triggered in under 2 minutes using a breath pattern so precise it reads more like a firmware command than a wellness practice. Here is what is actually happening inside you during that 90-second window. Your brain, in default waking consciousness, oscillates between 14 and 30 hertz, what neuroscience calls beta. Beta is efficient for reaction. It is poor for creation, intuition, or deep learning. To shift into alpha, 8 to 12 hertz, the thalamus must reduce its gating function. The thalamus is a relay station buried in the diencephalon. It filters sensory input and modulates cortical arousal. When thalamic gating drops, cortical noise decreases, and the brain's default mode network begins coherent oscillation at lower frequencies. That is not metaphor. That is physiology. The mechanism that unlocks this fastest is respiratory. The vagus nerve, the body's longest cranial nerve, running from brainstem to abdomen, is directly coupled to your breathing rhythm. A specific exhale-dominant breath pattern activates the parasympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system, reduces sympathetic drive, and lowers thalamic excitability within seconds. A 2018 study in Frontiers in Human Neuroscience confirmed that slow, paced breathing at 0.1 hertz significantly increased alpha power across frontal and parietal cortices within 90 seconds of practice onset. Not 5 minutes, 90 seconds. The biology was always there. Silva simply found the key. Here is what you are about to receive. This is not a meditation theory. This is a 3-component protocol, the same framework Silva taught in his original mind control seminars beginning in 1966. Component 1, the breath ratio, the exact inhale, hold, and exhale sequence that initiates thalamic deactivation. Component 2, the 90-second countdown window. What is happening in your nervous system at each phase, and how to recognize when the shift has occurred versus when you are still in beta, wearing the costume of calm. Component 3, the anchoring phrase, the specific verbal cognitive cue Silva used to condition the brain to return to alpha on demand, faster with each repetition, until the protocol required no effort at all. Each component is necessary. None of them is sufficient alone. Together, they constitute what Silva called going to level, entry into the alpha operating state where, as he documented across thousands of case studies, perception sharpens, coincidence increases, and what he called effective sensory projection becomes accessible. Begin with the breath ratio. Silva's recommended pattern is a 4-count inhale through the nose, a 4-count hold at the top, and an 8-count exhale through slightly parted lips. The ratio is 1 to 1 to 2. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 8. The extended exhale is the active mechanism. It is not optional. A short exhale, equal to the inhale, keeps the autonomic nervous system in sympathetic dominance. The double-length exhale forces a parasympathetic shift. Vagal tone increases. Heart rate variability widens. The thalamus begins to quiet. At the 30-second mark, roughly 2 full breath cycles, you will notice something most people misread. There will be a brief increase in mental chatter. Thoughts may accelerate before they slow. This is not failure. This is the transition boundary. The sympathetic system registering that something is changing and attempting to reassert control. Do not resist it. The chatter will peak and then dissolve. If you break the breath pattern here, you stay in beta. Most people break here. Stay with the ratio. At the 90-second mark, Silva documented this consistently across his seminar participants. There is a perceptible shift in visual perception, even with closed eyes. Darkness behind the eyelids deepens slightly. There may be a sensation of gentle heaviness behind the forehead. Some report a faint warmth at the crown. These are not psychological projections. They are the felt experience of anterior cortical alpha coherence. The brain's anterior regions, associated with executive function and self-referential processing, have synchronized. You are at level. Now introduce the anchor. Silva's original phrase, documented across multiple seminar recordings and in the 1977 Silva Mind Control International Training Manual, was this: "Every time I function at this level of mind, I am more and more effective." Repeat it once, internally, at the 90-second mark. Not as affirmation, as a neural timestamp, a conditioned signal that tells the brain, this frequency, this state, this is the operating environment. With repetition, the phrase alone begins to trigger the shift. The breath becomes shorter, the entry time compresses. Within 30 days of daily practice, most users report reaching alpha in under 20 seconds using the phrase alone. This is why the protocol is sustainable. It is not a one-time neurological event. It is a training loop. Each successful entry encodes the pathway more deeply. The brain learns what it is being asked to do and begins to anticipate it. You have tried meditation before. You know what happened. You sat. You breathed. You waited. Nothing shifted. Or it shifted slightly, then disappeared the moment you opened your eyes. That experience is real, and it happened because no one gave you the biological mechanism. They gave you the instruction without the explanation. Without knowing why the exhale must be twice the inhale, it is easy to shorten it. Without knowing that the 30-second chatter peak is the transition boundary, it is natural to quit. You are 45 or older. Your cortisol baseline is likely elevated. Your default beta frequency is probably higher than it was at 30. That means the threshold you are crossing is real, and crossing it consistently produces real biological return. When you operate from alpha state daily, the changes are measurable and specific. Decision latency drops. You respond rather than react. Cortisol curves flatten across the day. REM sleep density increases. Creative access, the ability to connect non-adjacent ideas, expands. Silva called this subjective communication. The neuroscience calls it default mode network coherence. The outcome is the same. You think differently. You act differently. The quality of choices changes, and choices, compounded over months, change everything downstream. How long have you been attempting to reach alpha state, and what has always stopped you? Leave it below. The answer matters more than you think. Most of what you have been taught about accessing deeper mind was incomplete. Not wrong, incomplete. Silva knew this. He spent the last decade of his life trying to identify what the breath alone could not do. There is a second component to Silva's protocol that was never published. It exists only in the private seminar transcripts from 1977. That transmission comes next.